Hey guys, it's Bryony. So if you notice I'm in the same outfit from the last video, that's because I'm trying to be good and film a few extras before this crazy week comes up. But I've noticed recently that I've been getting a lot of questions, not only on YouTube but also my Facebook group, from people asking why their cloth pads are leaking. I'm constantly getting questions about menstrual cups, but I've done a video on that already explaining all my tips and tricks for how to stop a menstrual cup from leaking. But here are some reasons why your cloth pads might not be working out for you or might have suddenly started leaking. So, first of all, if you have just bought a pad and you've used it and you've leaked through it, there might be a couple of reasons for that. Number one is if you didn't pre-wash it, that can cause leaking. With pads like these, cloth pads in particular, the absorbent fabric has usually not been washed before they're sent to you because they're sewn up and they're sent to you brand new. You need to wash the pads beforehand in order to bring them up to their full absorbency so that they will absorb your blood quickly. If you haven't washed them before you first use them, you might find the blood actually starts running off the sides. It's not absorbing as quickly. Sometimes it may take 2 or 3 washes to get them working really, really well, but personally I've always found that one wash through the machine, one decent warm wash around 30-40 degrees, will easily get these up to the absorbency, enough absorbency for me, and I'm not a heavy bleeder. If your cloth pads are still leaking after you've washed them a couple of times, what might be the issue is that you've got a pad that's not got enough absorbency for your flow type. So if you're very, very heavy, for example, and you notice there's a lot of blood on the pad and you've leaked through the back, it might be that you need to get a heavier absorbency of pad, because cloth pads are made in different absorbency levels. We go from very tiny, like very thin panty liners that have barely any absorbency in them, to moderate pads like this one that have maybe 1 layer of absorbent fabric in them, right up to some pretty heavy pads like this one that are bigger and have more absorbency built into them and are made from more absorbent fabrics as well, like bamboo, which is very good for absorbing large quantities of stuff very quickly. So you need to have the correct flow of pad for your particular flow. If you're very heavy, you might need bigger pads as well. So if you're leaking off the back, that's probably because you haven't got a pad that's long enough. And if you find that you have washed your pad a few times and you're still the blood's still running off onto the wings, what you might need to do is use a more absorbent fabric. So for example, cotton is great, but it's not a very fast absorbing fabric. It's sort of average. A material like this, which is bamboo velour, is very good at catching gushy flows. If you tend to bleed all at once, this is a great fabric for that because it just absorbs super, super quickly. That's one of the great things about bamboo, is it does absorb very quickly and it also holds a lot. Another reason you might be leaking through the back of a pad is because you have a very heavy flow and you've bought a pad that doesn't have PUL in there. If you have a pad that's backed in PUL, it should be pretty much impossible to actually leak through it. Plenty of people with heavy flows do use pads without PUL because they find that the PUL makes the pads less breathable, makes them feel a little bit more warm, a little more hot and sweaty. Personally, I don't find I have the issue if the PUL is just in the core of the pad and doesn't extend to the wings. But my flow isn't very heavy, so a lot of my pads actually don't have PUL in them anyway. If you have been using your pads for a while, so for example here I have an older pad, and you've started to notice that you're starting to leak, the blood's starting to run off the side, you're starting to leak more, or it's not as absorbent as you think it used to be, or you swear, like you look at the pad and you go, I'm sure you used to absorb more fluid than that. One thing you need to do is just smell it. If you can smell detergent on your pads, that means that you probably haven't washed them properly. You shouldn't be able to smell any detergent on your cloth pads. If you can, it means there's still some detergent left in the pads. They should pretty much smell of nothing. None of my pads have any scent really. And it's just because I wash them and wash them and wash. I make sure they're really well rinsed after they've been through their wash cycle. So one thing I'd recommend you do is put your pads in for a pre-wash before you actually put any detergent in. So just put them through a cold rinse cycle in the machine. Have a look in the washing machine. If you can see detergent bubbles coming out of your pads, that means you've got detergent buildup. I recently did this because some of my pads did have a detergent smell on them, and I put them in the washing machine for just a cold rinse, no hot water or anything, and there were so many detergent bubbles coming out of that I realised I wasn't rinsing them enough at the end of the wash cycle. Because with clothes that we wear, they don't need, like this, they don't need to be absorbent. It's okay if they had that nice smell like fabric conditioner in them. Obviously you can't use fabric conditioner with cloth pads, and if you do, that's probably one of the reasons that the blood's running off them as well. But if you're not using fabric conditioner, it's still running off, just have a smell. If you could smell the detergent there, that's probably a reason why that's happening. And what I'd recommend doing that time is put them in for a pre-wash, get all the gunk and the blood out of them, put your normal wash on with your detergent, OxiClean, vinegar, whatever, and then put them in for an extra rinse. Have a look in the washing machine drum while they're having that rinse and see if you can see any bubbles coming out. You want to keep rinsing them until you can't see any more of those detergent bubbles. It may take quite a few rinses if you've got a big build-up in your pads, but it will make such a difference, and they should become usable again, which should be obviously the best option for you. A lot of people worry about water consumption when it comes to pads, but a fun fact to know, and this applies to cloth nappies, but cloth nappies and pads are pretty similar in this kind of regard, which is that it takes around 6 gallons of water just to make one disposable nappy. It takes about 4 gallons of water to wash one reusable nappy 50 times. So the way that cloth pads and disposable nappies and cloth nappies are made is pretty similar fabrics from both sides, so you can imagine that they're going to be pretty similar numbers. And you would never wash just one cloth pad on its own, you'd always wash like a whole handful together. So don't worry about the water consumption. Even rinsing them out several times, you're going to be using less than it would to make one disposable pad. That is a worry I see a lot of people having, is they don't want to wash them too many times because of the water consumption, but trust me, get them really clean, you're going to be able to use them for longer, they're going to last longer, and just be better in general because they're going to absorb more. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. The other thing to remember is if you find you're leaking off the wing here, it might mean that the absorbent core is too narrow in the pad that you have, and you need to get a wider pad in the gusset, because everyone's underwear is different. But I do also notice this with the opposite. If you have a very narrow gusset in your underwear and you have wider pads, they tend to bunch up and then you can leak off the edge. So just make sure that the gusset width is the right size for your underwear, and that should avoid any issues with leaking off the side here. Hope this was helpful, guys. Please subscribe. Don't forget you can get cloth pads and menstrual cups on my website down below, Precious Stars, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.